Welcome back. My name is Michael Williams, Pro90D founder and speech coach. And today we're going to continue our series that I hope you've been watching, where we've been talking about how Pro90D can help you smile, where Pro90D can help you in as little as 15 minutes a day improve your speech. And if you are improving your speech and you're able to say the things that you want to say, when you want to say them, the way that you want to say them, you're absolutely going to smile. It's going to make you feel good. It's going to make other people feel good too, because when people enjoy talking with you, when they enjoy listening to you, when they enjoy being around you, they smile, they enjoy themselves, and you smile. So what does SMILE mean? SMILE is an acronym that represents the 5 dimensions that Pro90D addresses. So when we talk about improving your speech, be it overcoming stuttering, stammering, speaking too fast, losing your train of thought, right? Then we often think that it's just about that one thing. It's just about the mechanics of how I speak, or it's just about the way that I'm thinking, or how I deal with anxiety, right? But the truth is that it's multidimensional. And so the 5 dimensions that Pro90D addresses are, number 1, your speech, the mechanics of speaking, airflow and rhythm and all those things. Number 2, your mindset, which we talked about in the last video. Number 3, which we're going to talk about today, is your identity. And so mindset and identity are 2 of the most important things. And then the third one, or the fourth one, has to do with your livelihood and lifestyle. And then fourth, all of your other experiences. So in the last video, we talked about mindset, right? Today, we're going to talk about identity. Okay? We're going to talk about identity. So, again, the title of this series loosely is How You Can Improve Your Speech in as little as 15 minutes a day. And we've been building up to that because it's very important that you understand why you're doing what you're doing, so that you do everything. Okay? So that's why we've been walking you through all of the 8 activities that you need to participate in, that you need to do each and every day to address these dimensions of your speech. It's also very important to understand that improving your speech is a multi-dimensional affair, right? It's not just one thing in most cases. So let's talk about your identity. What do we mean when we say identity? What we're talking about is the way that you see yourself, who you believe yourself to be. And you have an identity, we could also call it a self-concept, for each and every area of your life, believe it or not. Let me give you some examples. You have a self-concept, it's how you conceive, how you see yourself, who you believe yourself to be, your identity, for how you relate to specific people in specific speaking situations. Some of the most common are, if you're in a meeting with colleagues, you have an identity for how you perform, for how you speak when you're in a meeting with colleagues. You have an identity for how you perform, for how you speak when you're in a meeting when there are managers or supervisors or people in authority there. Sometimes people perform differently. It could be the same exact content, the same meeting, except for someone in authority is there, a leader is there. You have an identity for how you speak to a small group of people, how you speak to a larger group of people. You have one for how you relate with people that you don't know and people that you do know. You have an identity for how you relate with your parents and each one of your parents, your siblings and each one of your siblings, your friends. You have an identity for how you relate, believe it or not, when you're standing or when you're sitting, right? So you have an identity for each and every area of your life, believe it or not. And so what we're going to talk about today is your speaking identity, right? In general, your speaking identity. So your speaking identity is who you believe yourself to be when you speak, when you communicate. How do you know what your speaking identity is? How do you know what you believe about how you speak, who you believe yourself to be as a speaker, as a communicator? Well, you listen to some of the things that you say and some of the things that you think. So if you say things like, when I'm in this speaking situation, I tend to do this, or I always do this, or I'm never able to do that. That, what you've just articulated, is reflecting, it's reflective of your what? Your identity for that speaking situation. So some people say, when I have to introduce myself to strangers or in a networking event or in a meeting, I tend to get stuck. I tend to have trouble. Or when I am doing a Zoom meeting or whatever it might be, if I'm doing a Zoom meeting or a video meeting and I can't see the faces, I tend to do this. Or if I'm doing a presentation and there are leaders there, I tend to feel rush. I tend to lose my train of thinking. I tend not to perform as well as I could or as I have in other presentations. So when you say I tend to, or I usually, or I often, or I always, what you're doing is you're simply reflecting, you're articulating your beliefs about yourself in that speaking situation. So this is important because your identity, who you believe yourself to be, will determine and predetermine and dictate your performance. Okay? Who you believe yourself to be will determine your future performance. So if you focus just on techniques and tactics, some strategies, or some programs, let me watch this video and specifically find out how I can structure my thoughts better, how I can prepare for presentations, how I can speak more smoothly and not lose airflow, how I can inflect, how I can use body language. If you focus just on the techniques, on the mechanics, you may be missing one of the most important dimensions of improving your speech, and that is your mindset and your speaking identity. And we'll define and determine or articulate the difference or how to distinguish between mindset and identity. But your identity is what drives you. So we need to address how you see yourself. Now, what's the difference between mindset and identity? Well, while they're related, they're not exactly the same. Your identity is usually unconscious. It's subconscious. And yes, it can bubble up and we can articulate, we can reflect what we believe, we can reflect our self-concept in how we behave and in the things that we say, but it's largely subconscious, it's beneath the surface. So generally speaking, if not virtually always, you're not able to just go in and change your speaking identity in one day or in one moment. It usually takes time. How do we change our speaking identity? Well, it's a factor of our mindset, that is what we are thinking on a moment-to-moment basis, what we are doing on a moment-to-moment basis, and how we are interpreting our thoughts and what we're doing. So in any given speaking situation, if you're telling yourself, hey, you're doing great, you're an excellent speaker, next time try to do more of this, right? So this is the self-talk, your mindset, what you're thinking about in that moment, and you continue to do that day after day, right? Then what you end up doing is changing your experiences, improving your performance, changing your pattern of thinking, which then begins to reform and reshape your beliefs about yourself. So it changes your beliefs. How you perform in situations. Wow, I did a great job then. I did a lot better than what I did before. So you start to believe, your brain actually goes in and looks at your performance that day or yesterday and says, wow, you did a great job. That means you're capable of doing a great job tomorrow or in the next presentation or the next interview. And so you start to see and believe yourself to be the kind of person who usually does well in these kinds of speaking situations. Does that make sense? So your identity is critical, because if you don't address the identity and the mindset, then when you are speaking, when you're giving a presentation, when you're in an interview, and you don't do as well as you would like, or you have a bad day or a bad week, if your identity hasn't changed, if you don't believe that you're an excellent speaker, you're an amazing speaker, an amazing communicator, then when you have a bad day or a bad speaking experience, you automatically start to feel like, oh, well, yeah, I figured that that would happen because I'm still a stutterer. I still stutter, or I still don't communicate very well in these kinds of speaking situations. So those are your core beliefs. So your beliefs will simply pull you back to where you were, pull you back to default whenever you have a bad speaking situation. Now, there are times when I'm speaking and I may not speak as well as I would like, right? But because of my beliefs, my self-concept, guess what? It doesn't matter how I perform in any given speaking situation, I still believe, in fact, I know that I'm an excellent speaker, right? And so it doesn't matter how I perform. It doesn't matter if the mechanics are not always perfect, but my belief, my self-concept, my identity says, you're an excellent speaker. You're a great speaker. You communicate well. And so that pulls me back up, pulls me back up. Does that make sense? So this is kind of one of the secrets to transforming, to improving your speech, is addressing the mindset and your identity. So let's take a look now at the activities, because remember, we've been talking about how Pro 90D addresses each of these dimensions. So now we're talking about your identity, your speaking identity. How does Pro 90D help you transform your identity? Well, let's take a look at the activities that you will be participating in when you get inside the program, or when I'm working with you one-on-one. And we've gone through these in each of the other videos. There are some that are going to impact your identity more than others. So one will be affirmations. When you are affirming the way that you want to be, you're changing the content of your thoughts. And if you continue to change the content of your thoughts on a moment-to-moment basis, on a day-by-day basis, week by week, month by month, then you start to form a new concept of yourself. You start to believe what you're actually saying. And when you believe what you're actually saying and you feel more confident about who you are and how you speak, then you also are determining, impacting, changing, and improving the way you actually speak. So by telling yourself that you speak this way, you are this way, and you start to believe it, and how do you believe it? Well, when you start to tell yourself that you think this way, you feel this way, you speak this way, you're more likely to filter in information that supports those affirmations, those new beliefs, right? Those new visualizations and verbalizations. You start to filter in, and that is, you start to see and look for proof that this is true. Wow, I did speak a little better that time. I did feel a little more calmer. I did feel a little more confident that time when I was speaking. Wow, that's great. I'm moving in the right direction. So you filter in those positive experiences, as opposed to when you're not affirming, right, or you're not visualizing and verbalizing, then you tend to filter the positive out and filter in the negative. You see, I told you, I didn't really speak that well. Maybe I spoke a little better, but I'm still pretty bad. You know, this has been going on for too long. I'm still screwing up, right? I'm still getting stuck. I'm still not able to say the things that I want to say. So what you affirm, what you say to yourself, helps you filter in the positive, see the positive, which then builds your confidence, which then impacts your performance. 777, breathing, as we said before, that helps you to relax, to get into the right mindset when you're doing your affirmations and visualizations and verbalizations. It also helps you with your breathing, and so when you are taking in more oxygen on a regular basis, especially in any given speaking situation, your brain has more oxygen to use so that you can think more clearly, you feel more relaxed, you feel more calm. You're able to access the information that you know you have in there, right? When you begin to hyperventilate your speech, your air gets short, and you're not really breathing, all of a sudden, anxiousness takes over. You don't have enough oxygen. You start to get cloudy. You start to feel more nervous, and you simply are just not able to access information that you've prepared for that you know that you know. Does this make sense? So affirmations, breathing, visualization, verbalization, free flow speaking. So if you struggle to speak smoothly or to stream your thoughts, that is to speak without thinking all the time about what you're saying, just say what you want to say without thinking about it. Speak without thinking, or speak while you're thinking. The free flow speaking addresses that. It helps you do that. And when you see yourself speaking with a nice rhythm and flow, and you're streaming your thoughts, and you're not having to necessarily think about and plan ahead, this changes your self-concept, builds your confidence. It changes your identity, who you believe yourself to be. Wow. In any given speaking situation, if I'm doing a presentation, if I'm in a meeting, I'm doing an interview, I'm confident that I'll be able to say what I want to say, and I won't have to be pausing for a very, very long time, or thinking about it, or getting confused, or repeating myself. I can just stream my thoughts and say what I want to say, right? Very, very easily and smoothly. So free flow speaking helps you with that. Modeling is the big one here. When you model, what you're doing is you are actually borrowing the speaking identity of your model. You're saying, I am this person in this moment. Now, some people have a hard time doing that. So when you're modeling, for sure, some people spell it with 2 L's, but you can also spell it with 1. When you're modeling, what you're doing is you're literally taking some of the characteristics of your model and transposing them over yourself, superimposing them over yourself. So you see yourself through the eyes of your model. You feel like your model. I remember many, many years ago when I used to model all the time, Brian Tracy and Charles Stanley. And I can remember one time when I was preaching in the pulpit. I would come out of the pulpit, I would have my Bible there folded, holding my Bible the same way Charles Stanley would. And I would use some of the same mannerisms, say some of the same things that he said. I had the same kind of speaking rhythm that he did because I studied him. And I would have people come up to me and say, wow, you preach just like Charles Stanley. And for me, that was a great compliment. That let me know that I was modeling, because I literally felt like Charles Stanley when I was preaching, because I would copy some of the things that he did, his mannerisms, characteristics, and so forth. So I felt like him. Literally flip a switch and become Charles Stanley in that pulpit. So when you model, the very best way is to just take on your model. If you've ever seen a video of Mona, she talks about how she did this every day, all day. And it very, very quickly transformed her speech. Very, very quickly. Got to the place where she won a contest or two, and she got a better job, making $10,000 more, and went on to get other jobs. But when you model, it's one of the most powerful tools, strategies that Pro 90D has, because you very, very quickly go from where you are now to where you want to be. It very, very quickly takes you from here, think of it like a bridge, over to here, to where you want to be. So here is the valley, and rather than working on the techniques alone or creating your own speaking identity and going through this valley, which you can do, and lots of people do, you simply borrow the identity and the characteristics of your model, and so you leapfrog over to the other side very, very quickly. Some people have a problem with modeling. Sometimes it's difficult for people to try to mimic other people, but in the program we teach you how to do it. And you simply have to trust that you already know how to do it because you've done it and you're still doing it. You did it growing up. This is the way you learn to speak, the way you learned a lot of the things you do. Many of the characteristics that you have right now, you picked up from people around you. So this is an innate ability. It's something that you're able to do, believe it or not, naturally. Just looking, observing, and imitating. And we do this automatically whether we know it or not. We're simply using it as a strategy, as a tactic, and it's been studied There's a lot of science and experience behind modeling. So when you model a speaker, you don't just model the way they speak, but you also say, well, let me model the calmness and the confidence that this person has. How does this person feel when they're in this kind of a speaking situation? So when you do that, you can very, very quickly change your own speaking identity. Does that make sense? So modeling is one of the most powerful tools for changing it. Practical application. When you go out and you try to apply what you've been learning, whatever it is, and you're able to do it, even if it's a little bit, you're able to do it, then you start to build that confidence. Wow, I'm able to do this. Even if it's a little bit, even if it's for a little while, I am able to do this, right? And so it starts to change the experiences. You start experiencing more successes. You start looking for the successes, no matter how small they are. You start looking for them, you start seeing them, and this supports, it affirms and confirms who you believe you're becoming as a speaker. Wow, look at this, I'm improving. I am becoming an excellent speaker. I am becoming a smoother speaker. Okay, so in order to see those real life experiences, you have to create them and take advantage of them. You can't just hide and just practice on your own and then think that you can go out and perform well. You have to practice on your own and go out and practice in real life. So practical application, self-talk, what you say to yourself on a moment-to-moment basis gradually changes your pattern of thinking, your attitudes, how you perceive yourself. So it changes how you identify yourself. What you say to yourself moment to moment eventually determines how you see yourself, who you believe yourself to be. If you keep thinking or saying to yourself, I sucked, I can't do this, this is not working, I'm not able to do this, I tend to do this, I never do this, I always do that, then you're going to continue to believe that that's true, and you're going to actually create that situation when you speak. You're going to make it true. So it's very, very important to watch what you say. Audio, video, listening and watching. What you take in helps you and impacts what you learn, what you think about, what you believe, and how you perform. So you have to be careful about what you watch, what you listen to. You have to increase the volume of content that you're taking in on a daily basis so that you can kind of wash your mind, immerse your mind in content that will help move you in the direction that you want to be, that will help you become the kind of person that you want to become, right? Your identity. And then you want to make sure that in all of this, you are constantly and consistently practicing all of these things that we're talking about so that you create these new patterns of thinking, these new belief patterns, and these new behavioral patterns. Okay? So it's something that you need to do every day, throughout the day. When we get to the end of this particular series, then I'm going to be sharing with you how you can shrink these activities down, and you can start with as little as 15 minutes a day so that you can begin to transform your speech. But this is how Pro90D works on your speech, how it works on your mindset, and how it works on your speaking identity. Now, I want to challenge you to take a step now. Don't just watch these videos or watch the other videos. Take a step now. And if you're not already in the program, then join our self-study as a first step. Or if you're a professional and you want to speed up the process, you want to get the smooth speech as quickly and easily as possible, then the best way for you to do that is to work with me one-on-one. That's the fastest way. That's the best way. That's the easiest way. Now, you still have to do the work. But what's going to happen is we're going to shave months, if not years, off the time it takes you. So if you've got interviews coming up, or you're planning for interviews, you have presentations, or you're just tired, and you want to get there as quickly and easily as possible, working with me is going to get you there. I'm going to be able to give you feedback, evaluation, and encouragement, if you let me, that will help you focus on that 20%, those one or two things that will get you there the faster. We have blind spots. There are things that we can't see. We think we're doing something and we're not, or we're not doing something that we should. And sometimes you just can't see that. And so I will say, hey, this is great, do more. Or hey, no, don't do that. Or do more of this, or make sure that you're doing these things, right? And you say, wow, okay, I thought I was doing it. Well, actually you got to do a little more. Or you got to do this over here. Or focus on these two things. Yep, look at the rest. Think about the rest. That's okay. But focus. This is what I want you to focus on for the next week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4. Focus on doing these two things. Then when you get those two things down, then we move to the next one or two things. So the coaching accelerates the process. Trust me. So again, if you're out there, you need to take a step now. The longer you wait, the harder it gets. The more opportunities you lose, the more money you lose, right? The more money you lose. So you want to look at Pro 90D like an investment, because it truly is an investment. It's a financial investment into your life where you can actually earn a return back by leveling up your communication skills. That's what we're talking about, right? Communication skills. You already know, I don't have to tell you, that if your communication skills are not where they need to be, you're probably going to earn less than you could. Okay? You're not going to be able to enjoy life as much as you could, and we'll talk about that in one of the other sessions. So take these steps now, invest in yourself. You're going to spend the money somewhere. You might as well spend it on yourself. The only question is, do you believe this is going to work? If you believe it's going to work, invest in yourself and watch as you receive the returns. Financial returns, emotional, mental, psychological, and spiritual returns that you'll get, because you'll now have a greater capacity to serve other people, to be able to give back to people what's been given to you, to be able to give back to people and share of your experiences, your knowledge, the things that other people need to get from you, both in your company and in your community. You'll be able to give those things back because you'll be able to get out and say what you want to say, when you want to say it, the way that you want to say it. Thank you so much for watching this video. My name is Michael Williams. Look forward to seeing you in the next video or inside the program. We'll see you soon.